At the end of 2025, Betaflight announced that there were a new release schedule and a new naming format for the versions. We had the 2025-12 release come out, and the intent was to make updates, stable releases every 6 months. So the 2026-06 release should be coming up. Now we'll see if that pulls together. You know, with volunteering, you get what you get and you don't get upset. But it begs the question, what's been cooking in Betaflight over the last 5.5 months? And when you really look at it, quite a bit. So in this video, we're gonna look at what's been cooking in the direction Betaflight has been going. You can see even over here, some fancy new things coming up in this new release. So before we get into all the new features in the firmware coming up, one of the biggest things is the configurator is getting revamped. And you can see here how it kind of looks a little different. With this, Betaflight is actually asking people to go ahead and try to use this now if you're into testing in any way, shape, or form. And it's easier than ever. To use the new configurator, all you need to do is go to up here. You can see it's master.app.betaflight.com. So normally you're going to app.betaflight.com for the online configurator version. And with that, you'll get the new configurator version. Now, you don't need to specifically have the new release of Betaflight or the alpha release of Betaflight loaded on your flight controller. You can use it with the 25-12 or older releases as well. So you can go ahead and check out that link next time and use that. Now, obviously it is an alpha release, so just, you know, be cautious about any settings changes or any kind of weird behavior that you might see. The intent is that you'd go ahead and report that on the Betaflight Discord and or make an issue that you'd post on the Betaflight Configurator GitHub site. So just going through this for a couple things that are different, you can see you can actually log in now to the configurator and save some of your settings, like some backups and things of that nature. So you can actually, like I said, go ahead and back up your quadcopter settings to this and have those saved for yourself. I don't have any specifically here, but you have a user profile information here, and these are just your login tokens for the user profile information. There's other things in here. You'll see like a pre-flight plan, so I can click on that, click my location, and this could be useful if you're out in the field. You can actually click the button for your current location. It kind of gives you a status of what things are, wind speeds at different altitudes, just weather, things of that nature. Some links over here right behind me, so you can go to see some of the mapping for your, you know, the different airspaces and where you're at, and click on these and kind of see some different things. Obviously, it's not picking up my exact location because I'm not on my phone outside. So essentially, this over here gives you some helpful links to make sure you're flying in good locations, and if there's any no TAMs or any of that kind of stuff, there's some just helpful links right there. So a little pre-flight thing here. Another addition here is flight plans. So I'm sure this will get expanded in the future, but you can actually click around and do some flight plan things and save it, and this is probably like a waypoint that you could probably upload into Betaflight. So outside of that, once you connect with a flight controller, by and large it's the same, just the setup tab's a little different, split up a little bit. What I like here is that the sensors data is actually on the sensors page. That basically has your gyro and other things, so it's kind of nice that it makes sense that it's on the same page there at least. And you can turn on debug modes here and view the same stuff you used to be able to watch on the sensors tab. But now you have the configuration of the sensors in that same tab, which makes a little bit more sense. On the PID tuning page, like I said, a lot of the stuff is just reorganized a little bit. It's all the same stuff generally, but you can see now the sliders are featured at the top, and then the PID's kind of at the bottom for just a heads up on what's you're changing there, which makes some sense. A little bit more focus on the sliders than the PID gains themselves. Filters, kind of all the same, all the same here. Receivers, much of all these other items are pretty much the same. You do see here that there is a backup tab now here as well, where you can go ahead and do a backup of your flight controller, and then it's right here to either delete, you can edit it, restore, or download that, and yeah, now you have a backup, and you can rename these things, and then have a backup for each of your different flight controllers in there. So when you flash over or break it, get a new one that's the same flight controller, like a race rig or something, you can just go ahead and hit restore, and you have your backups kind of built in, saved in the configurator, at least up to 5 of them. This is just cosmetic, but I think it's kind of cool just in the CUI. You can see how it's the color differential here a little bit. Little things sometimes make a little bit of a difference. One thing I did notice here that I don't think was available before, but if you go into the settings page, now you can actually resize the configurator display within. So if you eyesight's a little bit, you can make it a little bit bigger or smaller. And this is outside. This is not changing it on like Chrome or anything, zooming it. It's just the configurator itself. So that's neat. I don't think that was there before, but maybe I've been missing it. And I should talk about the flashing page. It looks a little different in like a multi-step process here. So now if you click detect on your flight controller, it should detect it like it has in the past. Here I have it set to expert mode, so I am getting the alpha release there, which is the 2026. Make sure you do go to, if you are checking this kind of stuff out, your build configuration, it's a separate tab here now. And then what's nice here is these little check boxes now aside of this. So you can hit this drop down, hit the check boxes. Some of the features I'll be talking about, like flight plans, that you have to check these things on. GPS, if you don't have these things checked in here, when you go ahead and flash your flight controller, then those options aren't going to be available in the configurator. So if you're not seeing something I talk about, it's probably because you don't have it checked in the flight controller here when you flashed to begin with, and that's why it's not available. So do take a browse through here. Obviously there's more stuff here. Barely flight plans, chirp, that was in 2025 release. But all the GPS acro mode stuff, obviously you have to have that in there if you're going to be looking for GPS kind of stuff. And then after that, you would hit load firmware online, make sure your other settings are correct, and then this just goes into the flashing page where it will, once you hit load, it will go to this page, and then once you actually go to flashing, it will go to this page automatically and show you a little progress dial up at the top. So what's the main reason for the change is the configurator is being moved from a jQuery code base to a VUE or VU, I guess you'd want to call it, code base, which is a little easier. It's a little more modern, a little easier to maintain, and can handle more complex things going into the future. Now with the configurator out of the way, let's get into the good stuff. What is actually changing in the Betaflight code and what are new features and enhancements coming? By and large, you can see there's a lot of emphasis that has been placed on the kind of making Betaflight a more robust platform. In the past, and its legacy use is racing and freestyle acro, and that has kind of been perfected out. Betaflight is really the best firmware for that. But, navigation modes and just a broader platform for wings, navigation, and going into the future, where Betaflight is becoming more robust with each release. So feature enhancements that are going to come in 2026.06 deal with drone CAN capability, increasing MSP protocol support for Mavlink, and making updates to the flight firmware through other inputs like Express LRS and other things while you're flying and in the air. Another noteworthy thing is really just wing support. There's a couple pretty significant wing additions to Betaflight and cleanup of that to better support wings. Launch mode is an open PR right now that will hopefully get added in. To me, that's a huge deal because launch mode is really, really nice for wings, and something INAV has that Betaflight doesn't. Another big thing that is recently a new PR there as well is black box support, where it's just continuous. So where you don't need to delete, like if you have flash, it will just keep recording and overwriting. So whenever, you don't have to keep erasing your black box. Whenever you would stop or download, you would always have the latest black box, and it would just overwrite the old stuff as the data flash chip is filled up. So that should have been in there a long time ago. It's probably harder than it looks to do that kind of stuff, but that is a pull request that's out there and hopefully gets merged here. You can see in here other advancements to the OSD, pixel-based support, and things of that nature. So major feature enhancements for the 2026-06 that have already been merged is the CAN and drone CAN foundation for support of those telemetry data. You can also see navigation modes, kind of the framework and foundations are being laid there as well for navigation mode expansion in Betaflight. Also flight planning and waypoints, those things kind of tie together. So checking out the autonomous flight stuff that's in here so far, if you go into the modes tab, you can browse down and go and you can see this. autopilot. So the autopilot, if enabled, will basically do an altitude hold and a position hold all together. But if you have a flight plan in place and saved in your flight controller, which you can go into the flight plans tab here, and I'll just hit load from FC, and you can see that new tab there now. And this is a flight plan. So if, say, this was empty, you can delete all these. So with those deleted, I can just come into here and then click a bunch of items for a flight plan. It gives me, the location that's going to be, of course, on my little map here, and then my elevations. I can come back into here and say, oh, kind of edit this and say 600, and you can see the speeds and so on and so forth. It looks like there's some some ability here that's going to be added in the future here shortly with some other things there, but you can see the profile for the altitude, so on and so forth. And then when you're done, you can go ahead and hit save, and that will save it out to the flight controller. You can see there's also a clear button. I could have just clicked the clear button to delete all those. At this point, these features aren't fully robust, so you're not going to see all the capabilities that you're going to see in iNav, but I would suspect in the next release after this, or two, you can't tell with the future, but you're seeing which way it's marching in that direction. The first part is getting the foundation laid to support those kind of features in the firmware. Major features that are open, as I mentioned before: ring buffering for the data flash, and MSP2 wing tuning commands, and I'll show you that here in just in a second. So you can actually connect and tune your wing remotely while it's in the air. So let me show you that. It's pretty cool. So this is a open PR both on the configurator and on the 2026-06 release. So it's not yet in the master code. It's still under review, and hopefully it will get processed and moved along. But there's this new wing tuning tab, which is really nice to expose some of the things that are available in the CUI. Basically the set point turns, the S terms, which I talked about in one of my last videos, which now they have a graphical user interface to actually adjust those values for how far your servos or how far your PID controller is influencing the set point based on your stick inputs. Other things, just exposing the surface instead of having to do all this stuff through the CLI. Is it rudder? Is it thrust vector based? Angular offset. These are all CLI things. Same thing down here to the TPA modes. What kind of TPA mode? Obviously, for setting it to wing, that makes more sense for wing stuff. And then all the settings that go along with that here. So I'm sure this needs to get kind of fully vetted out, get some little help tips in here and things of that nature, but this is what is currently proposed in the PR. More over the TPA curves here, and you can see there's classic and hyperbolic, and then you can see how things adjust through that those parameters, and kind of how that's working with your stall speed, and then how it's going to, as you go up to 100% throttle, it's going to dip your attenuate your PIDs for your speed. So as you go to higher percent throttle, your PIDs basically reduce, so you get less fluttering, but then your PIDs can be boosted at low percent throttle. Moving down, we're going to SPA, which is set point PID attenuation. So this has to deal with locking out certain terms. You can do an iTerm freeze, things of that nature. You can see right here the different options, and then just the settings, like what degrees per second are you setting those at, and then what is the width of when those are gonna lock and freeze out. Again, these are all things that are currently in Betaflight 25.12 release, and available in the CUI to edit, but now this gives it a graphical user interface, and from what I understand here, it's going to be adjustable via MSP2, so that would be something that you could do while in the air. So another improvement that wasn't on that list that I wanted to cover, because I think it's pretty neat, is this battery profile. So you can actually save battery profiles now if you have maybe a LiPo or a Lion that sometimes a flight or a drone, you might have one or the other on the same drone. If you're going to do long range, you put a Lion, and if you're going to, a little faster, you put a LiPo on there. So you can have a battery profile for each of those. So you can change these with the adjustments tab too on a selector switch that you can set your min max voltage, or you might just have a LiPo that you might have two different profiles for, whatever. You have these things that you can select them and then name them here, and then show them in your OSD, and then have different cell settings here, and all this stuff you can adjust. So pretty nice. Now we go from major features to minor features. You can see MavLink support, a lot of stuff with MavLink. And again, back to that broader based support for remote flight operation, wings, drones, things of that nature, and monitoring that in flight, during flight, with Betaflight. Usually that's like an iNav RG-Pilot thing, so you can see that coming into the Betaflight ecosystem. All the great flight performance stuff is still there, and all the great advancements that Betaflight has done with your picking and choosing of the features you want in your firmware, which extends the life of a lot of flight controllers that Betaflight has that other programs do not. But now you're getting all this other good stuff that those other programs have as well into a pretty robust system, honestly, when it's fully vetted out. So these are merged things already. Some of these items right here are open PRs. So the wing launch mode, as I talked about, is an open PR. There's actually a brushed crash flip mode. So for brushed motors, not just brushless, which we're used to. OSD compass options, and you can see this autopilot braking threshold. That has to deal with, again, waypoints and how it deals with interacting with those waypoints to not overshoot and things of that nature. Now moving down to there's kind of three major categories. There's the major improvements, minor improvements, and just improvements, or major features, minor features, and just improvements. And now we're down to the last kind of just improvements. Flash storage and a lot of stuff under the hood. And have plumbing, GPS performance, just again, a lot of things under the hood to make things fly better or operate better, more reliable, more robust in the system, but stuff you're not going to necessarily see. One thing that is a minor improvement that's not on my list here that I should add is where you can adjust sliders through the in-flight adjustment. So I added that. That was something I contributed. I'm still working on when I get some more time, but making that with in-flight adjustments, you can start to adjust sliders on a pot. And it's really gotten me into a full refactoring look at in-flight adjustments. Dominic Clifton reached out, made a comment on the thing saying, hey, that's something that he wrote a long time ago. And I don't think it's been touched much since then. In-flight adjustments is due for a little attention. So I started going down that rabbit hole. Anyways, more to come on that. But what is in Betaflight 2026-06 is that you can adjust your master multiplier slider through an in-flight adjustment. And that's not on the list here yet. Finally, the proposed and open filter and controls, OSD, LED, again, a lot of just minor features, sensor target coverage. So there is a lot more stuff. Let me kind of go into that here quick with sensors. So if we go up and connect in here and go into the range finders and optical flow sensors, you can see there's a number of products now here listed for support in Betaflight for those things. So I do see comments, people asking about that stuff from time to time, and you can see that those protocols and drivers and all that kind of stuff needed to make this stuff work is expanding here in Betaflight. A lot of the stuff you already find in iNav, but again, now you're pairing that with the flight performance of Betaflight, and just the ecosystem of Betaflight is really robust all around. So now you're getting kind of the best of both worlds. So how this breaks down for different pilots out there, you got your freestyle racing pilots, you have benefits of the logging, the continuous logging, hopefully if that gets added, more target support for the different flight controllers you might be looking at out in the market, filter control refinements, and OSD polishing. For long-range pilots, you can see navigation, MavLink, GPS parsing, compass OSD, altitude behavior. Oh, there's an altitude limit that is, I believe, an open PR yet to get added. So it would have, you could set an altitude limit for your drone, and then it would do things to maintain that. I don't know exactly how it works yet to see, like, does it just cut throttle when you hit the altitude? Like, what does it do there? But yeah, so that's another feature. And then wing users, there's a lot more to come with wings as that, just that UI and the auto launch, and just some polish going on there. There's also some servo things that have get refined. So hopefully servos aren't going to be as confusing going into the future. Again, I did a full tutorial on setting up servos and how it's kind of a little weird with the servo numbering. So hopefully that has been resolved. I did see a pull request in there to work on that. Well, that's it. So what do you think? Do those check the boxes for you? I mean, it's a lot of work. There's hundreds of PRs that went into Betaflight. You can see how Betaflight is kind of broadening out and maturing as we go here. With that, what features would you love to see added to Betaflight for enhancements and flight improvements and enhancements? Go ahead and drop those comments down below. And if you're interested in looking at what iNav has been doing, because iNav has been making a lot of updates as well, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to be doing a video on that as well. Through the 8.0 and 9.0 release of iNav, there's a lot of features that have been added to iNav, and there's a lot of experimental things that they're kind of check out with filters and things of that nature. So yeah, we'll be getting into that as well. All right, hopefully this was helpful. Thanks everybody. We'll see you on the next one.